This podcast is part of Mishmash Media. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Ivan, how are you?
All right, mate. All right. Welcome to another episode of Curbcast, and we are talking about Season 3, Episode 3, my friend, Club Soda and Salt. And apparently it's a remedy for wine stains and cranberry juice stains on couches and carpets. Have you been aware of this at all?
I've heard of salt removing stains, never club soda, and I don't think it's as effective in real life as they portray in this episode, and I don't think I would be as impressed as Larry is. He's just blown away by how good it is. But yeah, I've had a few little interactions with salt as a stain remover.
Yes, and also they're good to kill slugs too. in gardens, you just throw some salt on them and they disappear.
Yeah, and they make tasty food even tastier, and they extract moisture from mobile phones. So salt is kind of the wonder condiment of the world.
It sure is, and it's one of the cheapest. I think it's one of the only staple foods that hasn't actually gone up in price for like decades. It's always roughly been like $1 something, for a bag or whatever. It's always been cheap.
I figure as long as the ocean exists, salt will always remain steady in price.
Well, he's hoping the oceans don't, drain.
True.
Very true. Yes. But anyway, let's jump into the plot synopsis for Club Soda and Salt. This one aired in the US on HBO on the 29th of September 2002. Larry, Jeff, and Ted scramble to find a chef for the new restaurant, but Larry doesn't like Ted's recommendation. While trying to find a replacement, Larry learns a few things. Cheryl has a new male tennis-playing friend named Brad, and people won't take a wedding gift after a year, and that Club Soda and Salt will get stains out of anything, like we discussed just before. And Stephen, we're recording in the week where it's actually the 20th anniversary of Curb Your Enthusiasm. The Pants tent from season 1 was actually released this week.
Yeah, October 15th was the 20th anniversary, and we did talk about that in our Seinfeld news section on our normal podcast, but I don't want to be a secondary character. So if you are listening to this and you're not aware that we do have that podcast, go and check it out. Yeah, and it was just fortuitous timing that we've...
Yes.
Yeah, and really cool. And we talked a bit about the 20th anniversary, and there was a really good article on The Independent, I think, and it has Richard Lewis, a couple of the writers, a couple of other actors doing almost like an oral history and talking about the beginnings of Curb and what it was like to work with Larry at the start and how it's evolved and how it's still going, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you do happen to be listening to this, check out our main podcast, But I Don't Want to Be a Secondary Character, and make sure you check out that article as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyway, let's jump into it, mate. Scene 1 of Club Soda and Salt. Larry arrives home to see Cheryl speaking to a man named Brad and laughing while having a beer with him. Larry says that he'll go upstairs so they can chat, but Brad says that he has to leave. Larry jokes saying that he'll get a hetero woman to hang out with him and says that Brad wants to have sex with Cheryl. Cheryl denies this and Larry accepts her offer to play tennis with her. And Steve, this is one of those situations where things just build and build and build. And, there's certain circumstances where it kind of validates Larry's beliefs and thinking of it.
Yeah, look, I think he is a bit paranoid in this scene, but I don't think it's completely without merit or without concern that he is a bit skeptical of Brad's motivations. The fact that he leaves basically as soon as Larry gets there says a lot. Yeah, so I think he acts a bit sort of pouty and jealous in this episode, in this scene, but I think initial concerns are warranted.
Yeah, they were. And, we see later on in the episode when we discuss it that Brad does, drop, kind of subtle hints, like probably indirectly, about his attraction for Cheryl, because I do think he is attracted to Cheryl and wants to bed him. And Larry, calls it out in this scene saying, do you understand men? He says to Cheryl, men want to have, he's probably attracted to you and wants to be in bed with you. And Cheryl goes, that's ridiculous. So, Larry kind of understands, a nice, good looking guy, he wants someone like Cheryl, and Larry can see right through him.
Yeah. And I think Cheryl is aware of Brad's motivations, but she's trying to convince Larry that he just wants a platonic friendship. And I think Cheryl's probably, she's not someone that would cheat on Larry, but she's probably flattered and she's indulging Brad a bit because he's a younger guy, he's very forward and very flirtatious with her. And, being married to Larry, there's obviously still some love there, but you can see throughout season 1 and 2 and now sort of 3 episodes into season 3 that he is slowly wearing her down. So when a new guy comes along and is sort of young and a bit more exciting and a bit less Larry David than Larry David, I can understand why Cheryl would want to at least, sort of skirt that line. She's not going to go and sleep with him, but she's going to allow Brad to be flirtatious because, I get that. And also, Larry's had cheated on Cheryl emotionally before. So, there's a bit of, not that it should be eye for an eye in this circumstance, but Cheryl's got a lot of reason to indulge this, I think, without overstepping that line.
She does. And I actually felt kind of really sorry for Cheryl in this episode because this kind of shows that I feel that she's really lonely. She has friends, but I think she's kind of longing for, like a more meaningful friendship. I feel like her friends maybe, they're they're kind of just her neighbors and stuff, and they talk about different shit. But I feel like Cheryl kind of wants to connect with someone emotionally. And with Larry's just really like sarcastic and, really, he talks about the minutiae of everything, which we will talk about in a later scene, how this affects Cheryl. But I just feel like Cheryl wants to meet someone more of like a deep kind of personality. And I think I kind of felt really bad for her in this episode. I can kind of understand her frustration.
Yeah, she's a very morally astute person. So she would never cheat on him or lie to him. But yeah, you can get the sense that she's sort of slowly in her mind checking out of the relationship, and she is longing for something a bit deeper. I don't think it's even about age or looks. She doesn't seem like a very shallow or superficial person. I think she just wants...
She's with Larry after all.
Yeah, I think she just wants someone who is not just like Larry David all the time. She probably appreciates a bit of sarcasm and a bit of grumpiness, because that can be charming to a certain extent. It can be humorous, and you don't want someone who's just 100% happy and bubbly all the time, because that would get annoying. But just someone who's got a bit more breadth of emotional expression. Larry's always just sarcastic or grumpy, whereas Brad, he seems a bit more relaxed and a bit more energetic and upbeat and outgoing. So I think she feels like that is lacking in her relationship, because Larry is never like that.
Yeah, and I guess, like I said, we find out that it kind of snowballs and escalates in the final scene, the hilarious final scene that comes up. But anyway, speaking of scenes, mate, scene 2 at Bobo's, Larry tells Jeff about the Brad situation. As a removalist, or it seems to be like a worker carrying a box, he knocks Jeff with the box, and he spills his wine on a sofa. One of the managers of Bobo's gets club soda and salt to take the stain out, and which surprises Larry. He's like, club soda and salt? And then he's like, yes, if you get to the stain early, it'll take it out. And like we mentioned, it was very interesting how, we were stunned at how, club soda could, salt at least, but club soda can do it as well. You were a bit skeptical about that before.
It's not that I think it doesn't work at all. I just don't think it works as well as portrayed in this episode. He puts a bit of club soda, a bit of club soda and a bit of salt, and the stain is not there within like 2 minutes. I think it would be like, well, it gets most of the stain out, but maybe there's still a bit of color there.
Bit of residue, yeah, bit of red, red on that beige or cream couch, whatever that was. Chef Randy from last episode, because we don't really read the plots of episodes coming up, Stephen and I, we like to be kept in suspense and, find out what's happening. Chef Randy, like we with the situation with the peanuts in last week's episode, the peanut oil, there's actually consequences from it. And Randy, he tells Larry and Jeff that he's quitting as a chef, because he says he talks down about himself, saying that he sucks and he can't cook. And he reveals that it's because of the peanut situation from the Benadryl brownie that he wants to quit, and he doesn't want to harm the reputation of the restaurant.
Yeah, it's that, and as well as the pressure that comes along with being a chef for not only a new restaurant, but a new restaurant owned by celebrities. That would naturally get a lot of hype. There'll be a lot of expectations beyond just being a head chef. And yeah, I think his confidence is knocked about a bit from last episode as well.
Yeah, it is. And he does the noble, well, to him anyway, the noble thing, and he quits, which is quite surprising. I actually didn't think there would be consequences from what happened, but it's interesting how Curb sometimes can do something so subtle in a previous episode, or subtle for most characters, and then it snowballs into something more disastrous or consequential in later episodes. I like that. I like that style of writing.
Yeah, you think in last week's episode, the only, like the payoff to the joke or the closure of that little storyline is him just being a bit pissed off that Jeff wanted ketchup. You think it kind of ends there, but yeah, there is more to explore, and that the fact that they do it is good.
Yeah, because Jeff also says it was the ketchup, wasn't it? He argues to Randy, he says, I just like having ketchup, and he thought that was the one. So there's probably a multitude of reasons anyway. Ted Danson, he walks into the restaurant, and Randy says, I quit, and he walks off, and then Ted goes up to Larry and Jeff and says, what's happening? And Larry and Jeff explain the situation, and Ted recommends his own chef, his personal one, Josh. And Jeff suggests that they should come over to Ted's house to try the food. And the stain on the couch, the guy comes back, the manager, and he cleans off the stain a couple of minutes later, and Larry is stunned as to what happened.
I can kind of relate to that, because I was never aware of the power of bicarb soda as a cleaning product. And I remember years ago I had a pair of shoes that were in good condition, but they were a bit smelly. And someone said, just put a bit of bicarb soda in the inside the shoe and leave it for a few days out in the sun, and it will completely extract the smell out, like completely. And I was a bit skeptical. I thought, I'll give it a go. Even if it gets rid of some of it, better than nothing. And lo and behold, within maybe 3 days, I emptied the bicarb soda out and gave them a bit of a wash, and they were like brand new inside. There was no smell at all. So,
and the inside of your shoes became completely white.
yeah. And I was blown away just by how effective a simple household product was. So I can relate to how just, as you say, stunned Larry is in this. He's so impressed. He's just like, wow.
Yeah.
It's like he's just witnessed like a fantastic magician's trick or something. You know, he almost can't believe it.
And it's just a standard household item.
Yeah.
For me, like sometimes if I use turmeric in food, turmeric can like stain the kitchen benches. So what I do is I actually use vinegar and bicarb soda. I put it on the thing and I let it rest for, 5 minutes, and then I clean it off and it all goes. So yeah, it's really any kind of soda or baking powder or anything, it's really handy.
Yeah, no, vinegar is good too, and lemon as well.
And lemon as well. Yeah, lemon to kind of make it more of a nice fragrance instead of the, smelly vinegar, scent.
Is that coffee? Give me table salt. We've got a spill. Give me a towel. Wow.
All right.
What are you doing?
This is an old restaurant trick. You got to dilute the stain with club soda. You just pour club soda on the stain, and then you put on table salt.
In the next scene, Larry and Cheryl are at the tennis court as another couple run into them. They don't seem too impressed to run into the Davids as they walk off, and Cheryl realizes that they're a couple who they went to their wedding in Chicago a year before, and they realize they never got them a wedding gift a year after they were married, and she suggests that they pick something up.
Have you ever been in that situation where you've forgotten to get a gift, or you've turned up and you're like, oh, I didn't do that thing, and then you think, oh, I'll just do it later, it doesn't matter, and then it just, it slips your mind?
Well, not a year after. I mean, if I forgot a gift, I'd get something to someone like a week or two later, but I feel like that maybe Larry and Cheryl weren't close enough to this couple. I mean, they were probably just invited to the wedding, but, they didn't kind of have a second thought about the presents, and then maybe they just don't really have like a strong relationship anyway. So I don't see why Cheryl decided to get him a gift. It's interesting because I thought like the gift idea would be something Larry might come up with, and then Cheryl would be like, maybe, I don't know. And then Larry's like, come on, let's try it. I'm surprised this one came from Cheryl. Maybe she just wanted to make amends.
Yeah, I think so. I think she just feels a bit guilty. But on the flip side, the couple, I didn't catch their names. The Lodes, I think. I forgot the Lodes. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, look, if I were them, well, if it was me in this situation and a couple of friends came from across the country to my wedding, but they forgot to get me a blender or some stupid wedding gift, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, they made it all this way, and we got, how many people did they have in their wedding? They talk about
200 and something, I think they revealed.
266. So they got 265 presents, and they're still sort of holding a grudge about a missing present, even though they came from across the country. I think that's very petty of them.
Very petty, yeah. I didn't really like their characters, and I feel like in this case, Larry and Cheryl are probably in the right.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And the fact that they were willing enough to, we'll talk about it a bit more, but, that they still rebuff their present later on is sort of adds to their arrogance.
Oh, it sure does. Yeah, I know. They're such assholes.
Yeah.
Anyway, Larry and Cheryl, they're playing tennis. It's just a short scene. Larry is losing the match, and Cheryl keeps grunting as she hits the ball, and Larry calls her up on it, and he describes the sound as pigs fucking the grunt.
Yeah.
And then he's like, how do you think this feels, Cheryl? And Cheryl's like, that's how I've always played.
Yeah, and she doesn't care. And when he's trying to make his point about the grunting, she counts it as a point and she wins anyway. So yeah, she knows that, she's almost like getting gleeful joy out of Larry being so annoyed that it's putting him off. And, she's kicking his ass.
I feel like it's probably another reason that Brad's attracted to her, because they play tennis, and maybe the grunting kind of probably turns him on a bit. Maybe it's like, oh, maybe that's what she sounds like in bed,
Yeah.
Grunts like that. And he gets some ideas.
Yeah, could. And I mean, he would be seeing her sweat, wearing, sports clothes, which can be a bit sexy sometimes. So yeah, I can understand why. And Cheryl's an attractive woman, so I can understand why Brad, seeing her in that context all the time, would be a bit into her.
Yeah, for sure. And I like how Cheryl's in this episode a lot. We don't normally see Cheryl, especially in later episodes, we don't really see her, too much. I mean, the ones we've reviewed so far, she's just kind of peppered in, but I feel like it's nice how she's kind of like the main plot of this episode. Yeah, it felt really good.
Yeah, other than the restaurant scene just before, she's basically in every scene that Larry is.
Yeah, Larry's in, which is a nice change, nice refreshing change. In bed, Larry says that he's found a perfect pair of socks for Cheryl, or to Cheryl. She says that she's going to a play, Tony and Tina's wedding, and Larry asks if he can come. Cheryl admits that Brad is in the performance, and Larry starts getting ideas. Cheryl claims that she meant that they would both go, but Larry implies that Cheryl wanted to go alone, which, kind of upsets him in a sarcastic way. Larry knocks over his cranberry juice as they're about to have sex for Cheryl to make up for what she said, and he goes to get club soda and salt to clean it up, and it basically kills the drive.
Yeah, Cheryl offers to have sex with him, or, wants to have sex with him, and Larry's more interested in cleaning up a stain than pleasing his wife.
Exactly. Yes, there's a. I love that. I love how Cheryl's really because Cheryl's kind of conflicted here because she she wants to see Brad, and I think the reason why she wanted to go see Brad alone is to have more of, like we said before, more of a close friendship rather than like an affair or something. And then Larry takes it the wrong way, and Cheryl kind of still loves Larry and then wants to make it up to him by having sex, and then they're about to do it, and then Larry goes into his obsessive mode. Claire spills cranberry juice, which he happens to have at his bedside, which is strange. And and Cheryl's trying to come up with excuses not to clean it. She's just like, oh, it's an old rug, don't worry about it, all that stuff. But Larry's pretty adamant, and she doesn't want to have sex with him.
Yeah, I think it's just another case of what we were saying before, which is that Larry and Cheryl's marriage seems to be slipping away a bit.
Close to the rocks. Not quite on the rocks, but close.
just sort of heading into rockier territory. And this is just another case where Larry's more concerned about, he could show her the club soda and salt thing anytime, or just tell her about it. But instead he has to prove it to her. And Cheryl sort of, it didn't only kill the mood for Cheryl, but I think for Cheryl it's just a sign that he is not very interested in her.
Yeah. I actually felt kind of sad in this scene, did you?
Yeah.
Sad for Cheryl?
Yeah, and, Larry, instead of apologizing, he just sort of tries to re-engage in sex and not really reading or understanding why Cheryl is turned off and just sort of disconnected from the situation. Bit of a downer. And Larry just doesn't really seem to understand. I think he thinks that Cheryl will always just be around and always be willing to put up with his bullshit. But, everyone's got their limits.
They do. They certainly do.
Look happy.
Oh, shit.
All right.
Oh, my God.
Don't worry about it. You know what? It's cranberry juice. It's not going to come out anyway.
Cranberry juice? Oh, no, wait a second. I saw this thing at the restaurant today. Club soda and salt. Gets the whole stain out.
You know what? It's an old rug. Don't worry about it.
No. Wait till you see this. You're going to be amazed. Time's of the essence.
The next evening, Larry and Jeff arrive at Ted's for dinner to meet Josh, the potential chef at Bobo's. Ted assures them that he is a good cook. They sit down to eat and don't seem impressed with the food. Jeff tries to be polite, but Larry basically, he's pretty, straight up about it. He's like, the food's a bit pretty average. Ted sees Larry adding salt to the meal, and they start talking about Jeff's sweater, to try and detract from, Ted asking how the food is. And like I said, Jeff acts polite. Larry is just honest. He says the food's pretty average. And they begin arguing. Ted gets very annoyed. And Ted tells Larry that he has to tell Josh that he won't be hired for the chef role. And Josh comes out, and Larry tells it to him straight. And he says that his food is just too saucy. Josh is, obviously pretty stunned because he was probably under the impression that he would get the job. Ted was probably like, building him up. And he doesn't get the job and he's not impressed.
Yeah, and look, even though Larry probably could have handled it a bit better, I think if both Larry and Jeff are unimpressed by his food and they don't want to just hire someone because it's 3 weeks away until the restaurant opens, I get why Larry would just be, Larry would be like this anyway, but it's probably better for the restaurant and for the three of them as business partners that they don't hire someone just to hire them. And, it's harder for Ted to be objective because he's probably got a relationship with Josh, being his personal chef. He's in his life a lot. And being a personal chef, he might be a fantastic cook for at-home cooking, but a lot of the time those skills don't translate into a commercial kitchen where you've got to be a bit less relaxed. It's more high pressure. And to be honest, Josh seems like a sort of a softer man, I guess. Maybe he does handle the pressure of a commercial kitchen.
Josh would be eaten alive in the commercial kitchen.
I think so, yeah. I think his personality and his skills are more suited to, personal chefing, which is a lot more personal and relaxed. And Larry, not only his food, I think he senses that about his person as well. So even though Larry didn't handle it very well and he could have been a lot nicer about it, I think his honesty was a blessing.
It was certainly a blessing, and probably for the best for Josh as well. Yeah, he was doing him a favor.
Yeah, a lot of the time Larry, the way he conveys a message or the way he tries to make a point isn't the best, but the point itself or what he's trying to do is a good thing.
It is a good thing, yeah. Even though he was, a bit snarky about it, in a way it was for the best. And plus he didn't want the restaurant because he's already invested so much money into the restaurant. The last thing he wants is to hire some random personal chef, who instead of cooking for 2 or 3 people, Ted, Mary and their daughter, he's cooking for, hundreds of people a day. It'd be a different playing field and he'd definitely fold.
Yeah, definitely.
Larry and Cheryl are driving to get a wedding present for the previous couple, as mentioned earlier. Larry wonders why she has a tape in her car because normally she listens to the radio. And Cheryl says that Brad gave it to her. Larry listens to the song and questions the lyrics. One of the lyrics are, "You want to be with me." Larry is even more bemused by the Brad situation. And he's it's one of those situations where we know that Brad's attracted to Cheryl and wants more. Cheryl is very honorable and doesn't want to hurt Larry. But Larry's suspicions are getting more confirmed as they go along.
Yeah, the evidence is piling up. Want to Be With Me is a pretty well-known song by Al Green. And, he might be a genuine fan of Al Green and he might think, oh, wow, Cheryl might like this music. But to pick that song in particular, it says a lot.
It says a lot. And yeah, it does add to the fact that Brad does actually want Cheryl, despite what Cheryl says. Cheryl and Brad have two different objectives in their friendship.
I think and Cheryl's trying to play it down, but again, Larry is hassling her about it, and also she's smart and perceptive. She knows what Brad's up to, but I think she's just trying to pretend that they can be friends.
No, pretend, yeah. They arrive at a store as Larry is stopped by a sales assistant. Larry says that he's browsing. She persists, telling him about store discounts and more information about products. So Larry's basically implied, I'm fine, I'm just looking. But this sales assistant keeps pushing and pushing. I'm guessing she's probably on a commission or something. So that's probably why she's really, trying to push Larry for a sale. Larry once again says after the second time he's not interested. The third time, she still follows him. And Larry points it out saying, why are you following me? You've done like a full circle, even though I've told you I'm just looking. And the assistant gets very confused, with his actions or with her actions. Things escalate. Larry basically once again tells it like it is. And the assistant asks him to leave the store. And he's like, yeah, all right, I'll leave. No worries. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of annoying from a customer's perspective. It's kind of like if you go to a Bunnings and then, like a hardware store we have in Australia, and you walk in and they're like, hi, how are you? Do you need anything? No, I'm fine. And then you walk and, 10 meters later, there's another person. Hey, do you need anything? It's like, no, I'm fine. 10 meters later, do you want anything? No. So I can understand the frustration there.
Yeah, I think it's a bit different in Bunnings or something like that where there's multiple people because they don't know how many people have asked before them. They think that...
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. That's true, yeah.
When it's persistently the same person, yeah, you get frustrated. And sometimes even just one person asking, if you're in like a bit of a bad mood already, it is very annoying. Like I've walked into shops before and even the person just behind the counter saying, hey, can I help you with anything? Or, we've got this sale rack over here. And even that, I'm just like, just shut up and leave me alone.
Yeah. The only people that I've seen who do this are like commission-based roles, like car salesmen, real estate agents. They really push you and they call you every 10 seconds in the hope that you get a sale. And I think that's probably explains, or it probably makes sense that she might be on commission, probably like a really low hourly rate, but then she's on commission as well.
Yeah, but it's counteractive because if anything, it would drive people away. Being helpful and saying, trying to push them into buy something is an art, is a bit of a dance.
It is, yes.
When you overplay your hand very obviously and don't back down when you're being told to back down and go harder, that's just going to make people go, you know what? I was maybe thinking of buying something or I wasn't completely, I hadn't decided yet, but now, no.
No, that's it. And also after this scene ended, I felt like it kind of fizzled out and I'm like, surely we're going to see the assistant again. Because usually with Curb, Larry does something subtle and then it's the seed that's planted and then something really grows later on. I'm like, don't tell me that's the only time we're going to see the assistant and that's it. But we do. She is more prominent in the the third act of this episode, and we see later on what happens.
Yeah, it's a typical Curb play. You're right in that there's always a bit of a tension or a bit of a drama or a bit of an exchange with some random person, and it comes back to bite Larry in the bum later.
It does. Cheryl and Larry, they're back in the car. They bought a $300 bottle of wine for the couple. She suggests just to drop it off at the couple's house, no knocking on the door or anything. And as they're driving, Brad calls on the speakerphone asking if she's going to the play. Larry says that he's still going because Cheryl's like, Larry's in the car, and Brad's like, oh, hi, Larry. So obviously Brad is a bit disappointed that he didn't catch Cheryl alone. Brad suggests a new chef for the restaurant, and he suggests dinner after the show just to see what the chef can do. Brad seems mildly disappointed, like I mentioned, that Larry is in the car. And after Brad hangs up, Larry calls her out for this. Larry's like, oh, so you couldn't do dirty talk with Brad because I'm here and all that kind of stuff. And things the situation, it's one of those things where, with Cheryl's all innocent. It's kind of like what happens to Larry. When Larry runs into like a one-off secondary character or, a recurring character, sometimes, especially in season 1, he might do something and then to the person, their perception is that Larry is that kind of person. But then, even though it's the opposite of what Larry does, but then in another scene, Larry will do something to kind of enforce their beliefs. I feel like it's like Cheryl now who's kind of unintentionally doing it. It's a bit of a refreshing change.
Yeah, no, you're right. Where it's usually people who are skeptical of Larry or, unhappy with something that he's doing, even if it's not his fault. But yeah, Larry is the outsider to Larry in this situation in that he's a bit miffed about what Cheryl's doing with Brad. Even though they haven't done anything, he still thinks thinks that Cheryl's sort of leading him on or indulging him, or that she's not skeptical enough of Brad's intentions. So yeah, it's a nice shift.
Mm-hmm. And they get pulled over by a police officer, and Larry wonders what's going on. And a police officer says that there was someone who reported Larry following them in their car. And Larry's like, "What are you talking about? I don't know who you're talking about." And of course, a bit more earlier than I expected, we see the sales assistant jump out of her green Volkswagen Beetle, which is right in front of the car, and she jumps out saying, "That's the guy. He's been following me since we were at the store. He wants to take revenge on me." And Larry is, really confused, and he kind of escalates from there.
Yeah, and I don't know if she knows she's lying or if she's just insane. I don't know.
I think she's paranoid. I feel like she's just paranoid. Yeah. And it's just one of those coincidences.
Yeah, I've got the feeling as well that maybe her paranoia is manifesting from like external stresses. Like if her job is a commission job, maybe she's really underperforming, or she's got a lot of financial stress, and that's why she was really, really pushy with Larry. And then this, him seeing her seeing him in the rearview mirror. Normally if she wasn't under some sort of stress, she would just think, "Oh, there's that guy from the shop. That's kind of weird." But now she's like, "Oh no, he's following me." I think there's something else going on.
And something psychological. But anyway, Larry and Cheryl, after the situation, they arrive at the couple's house, and they both answer the door. They hand the couple their belated present, but they refuse it. It has been too long for them to get a wedding present. And a nice reference to season 1, there's cutoffs for gifts, the wife says. There's a cutoff. It was a nice little subtle thing, because Larry mentions cutoffs for calling people, at nighttime and stuff. So I like how that was a bit of a throwback to season 1. Things escalate as Larry criticizes them for their choice. And also, you accepted our engagement gift. You accepted us heading to Chicago. You accepted, the baby shower gift. So why won't you accept this one? It's one of those situations where Larry throws it back on them.
Yeah, he's what did he say? You're into us for about $5,500, and it's almost like a taste of his own medicine in a way, where he just comes up with these random rules about how society should work, and everyone else is like, "What are you talking about? Those rules don't exist." Like, he'll just say, "You can't do this after this time," or "So many months have accumulated, you can't do that anymore," whatever it is. And all of a sudden, this couple just make up their own rule. And Larry's like, "What are you talking about?" And Cheryl as well. So it's, kind of like the Cheryl and Larry dynamic switching. In this particular scene with these people, it's Larry's getting it back onto him.
Yeah, and it just seems like in the third act that Larry seems like the straight one, and everyone else is crazy around him.
Yeah.
They take the gift. Well, Larry and Cheryl, take the gift in frustration. The couple slam the door on them, and the wife cheekily says, "You should have called us first." The scene then cuts to outside of the theater with to go watch Brad. Larry heads to the bathroom. He sees Brad in the bathroom, and Brad is in character. I don't think he played Tony, the main character in the thing. I think he played like the mistress of Tina, from my understanding. I'm not familiar with that play. I don't even know if it's a real play, but it sounds like he's pining for the wife. And in character, Brad applies that Tina, so in this case Cheryl, only loves her husband Tony, who's meant to be Larry, for the money, and that she wants to be with Brad's character instead. And Larry's like, "Oh, is that right?" So Brad's kind of subtly, pretending to do a bit of improv, a bit in character. He's basically saying, "You know what? Cheryl doesn't want to be with you. She wants to be with me."
Yeah, Larry's onto him pretty quick. He, he perceives what Brad's trying to say with his story, and that it's a comparison to him and Cheryl and Brad. And he kind of plays along with it. He's like, yeah. And as he's leaving the bathroom, he's like, yeah, you do that. And Brad's a bit confused. He's like, "Is Larry on to me? I thought I was being subtle and clever, but Larry, I think, knows what's going on, or was he just playing along?" I don't know. So Larry sort of leaves him a bit confused. He's like, what's going on here?
What's going on? Yeah, because I think that Brad, he has to be in character like half an hour before he jumps on. He's not one of those actors who can just jump in the moment. I think he's probably not really that good of an actor. That's why he's in like supporting roles. He's not like the main star. And he kind of needs to develop his acting chops. But yeah, I like how Larry's like really passive aggressive, and he just walks out. He's like, "I don't want this shit. I'm done with you." And in the very last scene, probably one of my favorite scenes in this episode, they're all at the restaurant. So Larry, Jeff, Cheryl, and Ted. Oh, and Brad too, of course. They're waiting on the food. Cheryl brings out the wine that they tried to give the couple, the $300 bottle. The scene cuts as they're talking. Larry pours the wine, and we find the assistant's husband goes up to Larry, knocks him over. Larry spills a wine on Cheryl by mistake. mistake. And the husband says, why did you stalk my wife and all this stuff? And we see the assistant, cowering at the table nearby. And he grabs Larry by the collar and starts shaking him. And Brad says, oh, we got to get some club soda and salt. And he's seen rubbing Cheryl's breast area to get the stain out. And I love that shot right at the end of the episode where Larry is looking on helplessly. And he's like, he knows what Brad's trying to do. And then Cheryl's all distraught. Everyone's distraught. And Brad's, he's copying a bit of a feel, especially on her right breast. He's really going in for it.
Yeah, I think at this stage he's like, you know what? I'm just going to go all out. And even in front of Larry, I'm just going to be a creep. And, if Cheryl's into it, great. If not, then, Larry will...
It's a big risk.
I think he's just at a point now where he's like, I'm trying to be subtle about it. I'm trying to let her know that I want her through music. I'm trying to flirt with her at her house. Now he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to go all in and I'll see what happens.
And the problem is Larry can't do anything. Larry wants to go over and punch him, but he's being collared by the assistant's husband. So I just love that shot of him being so desperate trying to do it, and then Brad's just getting away with what he's doing. It's a really good shot as it cuts to the credits.
Yeah,
and the music plays. Yeah,
and very well together at the end too.
Yeah, and I wonder if Brad will make an appearance again. I mean, like I said, we like keeping surprised. We like the surprise of future episodes. So we don't even know what the name of the next episode is. That's how excited and how much we want to keep it, on the down low before we record. But anyway, that is the episode. That was Club Soda and Salt. And Stephen, I like this episode. I think it's the best one out of the 3 so far. 4 out of 5 for me. What about you?
I give it 1.5 out of 5. I didn't really like this episode much.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, interesting. The worst one for you.
Yeah, look, I think it had a lot of potential, but I don't know. I just didn't really care about it that much. I didn't laugh a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. It just didn't do it for me.
Fair enough. Well, I like that there were scenes where they were kind of touching as well. And, it was a bit, very subtle drama, especially with Cheryl and Larry in the bedroom with the cranberry stain. It kind of showed they basically went to the next level towards rock bottom after that scene. And it really showed Cheryl's kind of vulnerability and just kind of her desperation to try and keep the solid marriage and, try not to show her husband that she is having an affair, even though she isn't, and she has good intentions. I like that dynamic. I think we knew more about Cheryl in this episode than we did previously. I actually felt really sorry for her.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to bump it up to 2 stars out of 5 because
just for Cheryl.
Well, that as well as the few things that they did differently this episode that we've already mentioned, where Cheryl is the one where people are questioning her behavior, not Larry, and also the fact that the shop assistant was sort of the paranoid one, giving Larry lots of grief and causing lots of trouble for him, and Larry was completely innocent. So the sort of flip on how it usually is made it a bit more interesting. So I'll leave it at 2 out of 5.
Good, you bumped it up another half. Yeah, I mean, if for the assistant situation, if we only saw the assistant in that first scene and that was it, I'd probably bump it down to maybe 3.5. But I like how in the third act she was more prominent, and then we see everything just blows over, and then the situation, Brad with Cheryl, and then the husband with Larry, and how Larry's so helpless. He knows Brad's trying to get in one on his wife, in front of everyone, but he can't do anything about it in this situation. I like that. I like how it all kind of wrapped up in a nice little bow.
Fair enough.
Yes. But anyway, that was Curbcast Season 3, Episode 3, my friend. And you can listen to this at the moment exclusively on Patreon as we record, patreon.com/bidwabask. If you are a Patreon subscriber, thank you for your support. And if you do know someone who listens to our other podcast, Bidwabask, who might want to support us financially and get access to this episode and Seasons 2 and 3, just get them to jump on board and slip us a couple of bucks a month, and they'll be able to listen to it at the moment.
Yeah, no, we'd really appreciate that. And as Ivan said, we do appreciate you supporting us. It helps us cover some of the costs. And we just think it's a very nice thing, especially during these times when money's a bit harder to come by and you've got to tighten the purse strings a bit. It means a lot. We do have an email as well, curtcastpod@gmail.com. So write us if you want to chat to us about Curbcast.
Indeed. My name's Ivan.
I'm Stephen.
We'll see you next week for Curbcast and for our main podcast, But I Don't Want to Be a Secondary Character. You take care of yourselves and each other, yeah? Thanks for listening. This podcast is part of Mishmash Media, an independent podcast network. Follow us on social media at Mishmash Media AU or support us on Patreon. All those links are in the show notes.